I once thought I'd found true love until I married into the Anyang Marquis manor in my second year. My husband Pei Jinping, heir to the Anyang Marquis, had an affair with a county magistrate's concubine-born daughter. The whole city knew. But Pei Jinping acted as if nothing happened, pulled me into his arms and said in a voice soft to the bone,
"My lady, you're from a noble family. Nian Nian is of low birth. You've always been mild-tempered. How about let her serve me alongside you? Would that be fine?"
I held the account book in my hand without even looking up. A concubine-born daughter of a 9th rank official, by custom, can only be a concubine. But if my husband truly likes her, then raising her to secondary wife is also acceptable. Pei Jinping's face showed slight anger. He moved a bit further away from me, where I couldn't see. He gritted his teeth, struggling to conceal his emotions.
"Madam Nian Nian, though she is a concubine's daughter, has always been proud and aloof, unwilling to be a secondary wife."
I handed the account book to my maid. Kaiping gave a few instructions, straightened my clothes, and sat upright at the tea table. My face showed no emotion. "Are you saying that you want to divorce me and marry her? I am the legitimate..." The second year after I married into the Anyang Marquis manor, my husband had an affair with another woman. The whole city knew. I was thrown out onto the street, a discarded wife. The crowd burst into an uproar, all laughing at me.
"You, a divorced woman, damaged goods, you think, without me in all of the capital?"
"Who would still want you?" I glanced past him toward the groom holding a horse by the roadside. I stood up, lifted my skirt and walked up to him, lifted my head and said, Would you marry me?" A deathly silence. Everyone's eyes went wide, unable to believe what they'd just heard. My husband burst into loud, mocking laughter. His ne'er-do-well friends joined in the jeering, filled with contempt and mockery.
"Ha ha ha, song signing, you really have gone mad lowering yourself like this, actually picking a groom."
The groom spoke slowly. His voice was low, even somewhat deep and hoarse, yet oddly cut through all the noise. I couldn't ask for more. Pei Jinping's laughter cut short like a duck with its neck pinched. His sneer froze and turned into shock. Suddenly, someone shouted,
"That's
he's the Regent Prince, Xie Yu." I once thought I'd found true love until I married into the Anyang Marquis manor in my second year. My husband Pei Jinping, heir to the Anyang Marquis, had an affair with a county magistrate's concubine-born daughter. The whole city knew. But Pei Jinping acted as if nothing happened, pulled me into his arms and said in a voice soft to the bone,
"My lady, you're from a noble family. Nian Nian is of low birth. You've always been mild-tempered. How about let her serve me alongside you? Would that be fine?"
I held the account book in my hand without even looking up. A concubine-born daughter of a 9th rank official, by custom, can only be a concubine. But if my husband truly likes her, then raising her to secondary wife is also acceptable. Pei Jinping's face showed slight anger. He moved a bit further away from me, where I couldn't see. He gritted his teeth, struggling to conceal his emotions.
"Madam Nian Nian, though she is a concubine's daughter, has always been proud and aloof, unwilling to be a secondary wife."
I handed the account book to my maid. Kaiping gave a few instructions, straightened my clothes, and sat upright at the tea table. My face showed no emotion. "Are you saying that you want to divorce me and marry her? I am the legitimate daughter of the prefect of Yongzhou, pampered since childhood. My uncle is a merchant as rich as a nation. My brother just earned military merit. He is a proud young general. On the day my mother married my father, the bridal procession stretched from the east gate to the west gate. The dowry took 3 days and nights to carry over. At my coming-of-age ceremony, sons of noble families seeking marriage surrounded my house so tightly, but my father and mother didn't fancy any of them, and kept delaying my betrothal, until Madame Anyang came visiting with a heirloom jade bracelet. Only then did my parents nod in agreement. Before the engagement, my mother and I sat together on the bed, signing, "I know you're unhappy with this match," and looked down on the heir to the Anyang Marquis, but signing, "Do you know what happens to those as rich as a nation?" I said softly, "The disaster of confiscation and extermination of the clan." My mother was stunned, unexpected that I was so perceptive. She smoothed the stray hair on my forehead and said earnestly, signing, "You are the smartest. The Anyang Marquis has only this one son, though he is a philanderer, and not amounting to much, but the Marquis has promised that in the future, your son can inherit the title of Anyang Marquis. You will be the principal wife of the Anyang Marquis manor." I suddenly understood and realized my mother's good intentions. My mother hoped to protect my lineage and at the same time, make those who covet our family wealth think twice. I nodded and said to my mother, "I'll marry. Our Song family is immensely wealthy, but if we truly want to ascend to noble status, we need the support of a meritorious Marquis manor, and the manor is also our life-saving charm." On our wedding day, red candles flickered high. I sat on the bridal quilt covered with dates and peanuts, hearing footsteps approaching from afar. When my veil was lifted, I looked up, seeing my husband for the first time, Pei Jinping. known for his womanizing ways, had a strikingly handsome face, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, a straight nose, thin lips, pale in color. He wore a bright red wedding robe, standing tall like a pine. In his eyes as he looked at me, there was a hint of appraisal, 7 parts of distance, yet it still stirred something in my heart. He spoke, his voice, clear as a spring, my lady. That night, he was gentle with me like water. In my heart, I imagined, maybe spending my life with him would be a blessing. At the very least, my son wouldn't be ugly. The next morning, after washing up, I followed him to serve tea to his parents. The Marquis and his wife sat upright in the hall. The Marquis was dignified, his wife was kind. Following the etiquette I learned at home, I bowed and served tea meticulously. The Marquis's wife took the teacup smiling. She put a high-quality jade bracelet on my wrist, signing, "From now on, you are a daughter of the Pei family. Jinping is a bit carefree, please bear with him." I lowered my eyes and replied, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Pei Jinping standing by, with a blank expression. "You're too kind, mother. To serve my husband, to honor my parents-in-law, is my duty as a wife." The day after the wedding, the Empress Dowager held a banquet in the palace, inviting noble ladies of the capital to admire flowers. I usually wouldn't have been qualified to enter the palace, but due to the face of the Anyang Marquis' residence I also received an invitation card. But it was this very invitation that changed my life. Entering the palace that day I dressed carefully, neither ostentatious, nor lacking in propriety. At the banquet, the Empress Dowager asked about the new bride of the Anyang Marquis. I stepped forward to answer, with respectful words, and proper demeanor. The Empress Dowager took my hand and looked me over. She smiled and said, "What a lovely lady. She looks blessed indeed." Just that one sentence after returning to the mansion, my in-laws' attitude toward me became noticeably warmer. Pei Jinping, even, for a rare change, stayed a bit longer in my room. Although he still spoke little, he no longer, as before, rushed in and out. I began to feel joy in my heart. I fantasized that perhaps I could truly live with him in mutual respect. I studied the chess manuals he liked, practiced the calligraphy he often wrote, and even asked the cook about the dishes he loved. Whenever I saw the fleeting surprise in his eyes, I felt it was all worth it. On the 3rd day, the return visit to my family, the carriage headed to the prefect's residence of Yongzhou. Father and mother were already waiting at the gate. Seeing that Pei Jinping and I came together, the smiles on their faces were genuine. During the banquet, Father and Pei Jinping discussed state affairs. My brother talked about interesting matters from the border. Mother held my hand and inquired in detail about life in the Marquis' mansion. Everything was harmonious and joyful. As if I had truly married the perfect husband. After several rounds of wine, Pei Jinping suddenly set down his cup. He looked at me with eyes calm and unruffled. His voice was not loud, but every word was clear.
"Father-in-law, mother-in-law, your son-in-law has something to be honest with you. Before marrying Xining, I already had a confidant outside.
She was originally a dancer named Qiang Wu from Fuqing Tower. She and I have a deep affection for each other.
And I cannot bear to see her remain in the world of entertainment. I wish to bring her into the mansion
and give her a proper status.
I hope you, my in-laws, and Xining will grant this."
The air in the hall suddenly froze. Father's smile stiffened on his face. Mother tightened her grip on my hand. My brother's expression darkened, and he looked sharply at Pei Jinping. I gently squeezed Mother's hand back, signaling for her to be at ease. Then I looked up at Pei Jinping, my tone still calm and gentle. "Husband, we have been married for only 3 days. Father is still in the capital at this moment, and has not yet left to take up his post. Taking a concubine at this time would seem to go against propriety, and would invite criticism. People would say you are not respecting the new marriage, and not valuing your legitimate wife. Father has always valued rules and propriety, and I fear he will not permit this." Pei Jinping's face darkened slightly, clearly not expecting me to invoke the Marquis of Anyang, much less that I would be so composed. He pursed his lips and said coldly, "You are unwilling." I slowly rose, walked to his side, and said softly, yet loud enough for everyone present to hear, "Could it be that you wish to divorce me and marry her as your wife?" I can't believe I just blurted out all those dirty thoughts of his. My parents' faces were grim. They probably never imagined that the heir of the Anyang Marquis could be so bold and shameless. On the day of the homecoming he actually asked his wife to make way for his mistress. "If word gets out people will laugh us out of town." Pei Jinping's face froze instantly. He said nothing. My father finally understood everything. His face darkened like a thundercloud. He slammed his wine cup onto the table with a dull thud. Wine splashed out, soaking the brocade tablecloth. He didn't look at Pei Jinping. Instead, he turned his gaze to me with disbelief and heartbreak in his eyes. My mother gripped my hand, her nails almost digging into my flesh. Her chest was heaving. Clearly she was struggling to contain her rage. My elder brother Song Chengyi was even more direct. He stood up abruptly, his hand on the sword at his waist. The scabbard scraped against his armor, his eyes sharp as knives piercing straight through Pei Jinping. The hall fell into dead silence. The fake festive atmosphere vanished completely, leaving only suffocating tension. Pei Jinping only then realized what a hornet's nest he'd stirred up. His smile froze, turning into awkwardness, then fear, and finally a forced calm. But he couldn't hide the guilt in his eyes. He opened his mouth as if to explain, but his eyes darted around, unable to meet anyone's gaze. I gently freed myself from my mother's hand. I stood up and walked over to Pei Jinping's side again. This time, I didn't deliberately soften my voice. I said to my parents and brother, "Father, mother, brother, my husband has already discussed this matter with me. Since I have married into the Pei family, I should naturally regard my husband as my priority, and put the honor of the Marquis's residence first. My husband values loyalty and love. He can't bear to see his close friend fall into the demimonde. This is a kind and benevolent heart. As the legal wife, it is my duty to share his worries, manage the household, and arrange for concubines. That is also my duty. But husband, don't forget, a concubine is just a concubine. She can never become a wife." When my brother looked at me, there were tears glistening in his eyes. Then he gritted his teeth and glared at Pei Jinping, as if he wanted to wring his neck. Father wanted to say something for me, but seeing that I remained calm, as if I had accepted this matter with composure, he had to let it go. Actually, before marrying into the Anyang Marquis' residence, I had already investigated Pei Jinping. I knew roughly about his romantic affairs outside. Roughly. Qiangwu is just among them, the most insignificant one. She comes from a lowly background, has no one to rely on. Because she plays the people well, she has won Pei Jinping's favor, and thus can live such a free life. This matter doesn't even require my intervention. Just my face-loving mother-in-law, the lady of Anyang Marquis, won't approve. I just want to see how he is going to handle it when the time comes. Anyang Hao just left the capital for the frontier. My dear, devoted husband came to me to fulfill his promise. When he arrived, I was sitting by the window, using the daylight, carefully reviewing this month's purchase ledgers from every department. Kaiping was fanning me beside. The room was quiet, only the occasional rustle of pages turning, and a few lazy cicadas chirping outside. Pei Jinping's voice sounded at the door, with a deliberately softened tone, but his footsteps unconsciously betrayed urgency. "You are quite diligent, my lady." I looked up and put down the ledger, a timely, gentle smile spreading across my face, and stood up to welcome him. "You're here, my lord. The weather is sweltering, why not rest in the study? Kaiping, go bring a bowl of iced mung bean and lily bulb soup." Pei Jinping waved his hand, his eyes scanning my face, as if verifying whether my magnanimity during my last visit home was feigned or not. No need to bother. He paced to the table, casually picked up a ledger and flipped through it, then put it down, tapping his knuckles on the rosewood desk, hesitating a little, and finally spoke. "Signing, about what we mentioned during your last visit home, your father has already left the capital, so." I sneered inside, but on the surface showed understanding and compassion. "You must be thinking of Lady Qiangwu, my lord." I've kept it in mind, never dared to forget. I walked back to the table. I closed the open ledger. I adjusted my sleeves. My tone was steady. "But, you know, husband, mother is still in the residence. This matter concerns the honor of the Marquis' mansion. And even more, your reputation. If we act without mother's approval, and rashly bring someone in, I'm afraid it would be inappropriate. It would also be unfair to Miss Qiangwu." Pei Jinping frowned slightly, clearly impatient. "I'll speak to mother myself, but as for the arrangements, I'll need you to handle them. Qiangwu has a gentle nature. She doesn't like ostentation. But she deserves all the proper respect." How affectionately he calls her name. His tone was full of endearment. My fingertips tightened slightly inside my sleeve. But my smile remained unchanged. "Rest assured, husband, since we are to give her the status of honored concubine, the proper ceremonies, the required procedures, I will not omit a single one. However," I hesitated slightly. I looked up at him. He immediately stood up and demanded, "However what? You agreed to this a few days ago. Now, you're not going back on your word, are you?" "Husband, what are you saying? I promised, so of course I won't break my word. But have you considered, husband, under what title will Miss Qiangwu enter the household? Honored concubine, secondary wife, or an ordinary concubine?" "Of course, honored concubine," I promised her. "I can't let her feel wronged." "Honored concubine," I mused. "Though a noble concubine has more prestige than a common one, she is still a concubine. By rule, when a noble concubine enters the household, she needs the consent of the principal wife. The mistress must nod her approval. She must serve tea to the elders, and be recorded in the side branch of the family tree. Only then is the ceremony complete. Additionally, all her allowances, living quarters, and attendance follow established precedent. Nothing can exceed these limits. These matters. My lord, have you explained this to Lady Qiangwu? Is she willing to abide? These trivial details you can handle them as you see fit. Just bring her in as soon as possible. She's a fragile woman, out there alone. I'm truly worried. Since my lord says so, I will begin preparations. However, there is one thing I need to explain to you first. The allowance for a noble concubine is 5 taels of silver per month. 4 sets of clothes for each season, jewelry replenished each season, 2 serving maids, 1 rough work maid. As for the courtyard, the Lanyu pavilion to the west is vacant. Though a bit remote, it's quiet and peaceful. With a little tidying, it can be occupied. These are all old rules of the Marquis mansion, set by my mother-in-law when she managed the household. I've just arrived. I dare not change them lightly. I hope my lord understands. Do as you say. Make it quick, yes. In that case, I will go to mother-in-law shortly to seek her approval. If she permits, I will pick the nearest auspicious day to bring Lady Qiangwu in. However, the day she arrives should not be flashy. After all, father has just left the capital. If we make a big fuss, it might invite criticism. How about at dusk? A small sedan chair slips in through the west side gate. It covers all the proprieties, and is not too showy. What do you think, my husband? As you wish. There's one more thing. I just remembered. Her tone remains gentle. After Lady Qiangwu enters the household, by custom, she must first come and serve me tea, and acknowledge me as the mistress. After that, I'll take her to pay respects to mother. It's a matter of etiquette. Also, it's for her future standing in the household. What do you think, my husband? Pei Jinping's face is as dark as the bottom of a pot. He glares at me, as if trying to see some conspiracy from my calm, expressionless face. But he sees nothing. In the end, he can only squeeze out a few words through clenched teeth.
Fine.
Having said that, he can no longer stay. He flicks his sleeve and turns around, and strides away. His back exudes deep frustration and anger. Kaiping, standing by, was already pale with anger. When Pei Jinping is far away, she whispers,
"My lady, you are too good-natured. He just bullies people like that."
I pick up the account book, and open it again. My eyes fall on the line I circled earlier. I say calmly, what's the hurry? The fun has just begun. I did not delay. That afternoon, I went to the Hall of Fortune and Longevity where the lady resides. The lady was chanting scriptures in the small Buddhist hall. Hearing that I had come, she came out twisting her prayer beads, with a weary look on her face. It's obvious that Pei Jinping already came and made a scene. I respectfully bowed. "Are you well, mother?" The lady sighed, and gestured for me to sit down. "Sit." Jinping just came by. "What do you think about what he said?" I lowered my eyes, speaking meekly. In reply, "Mother, my husband already mentioned this to me. Since I have married into the Pei family, I naturally follow my husband's wishes, and prioritize the honor of the Marquis' household. It's good that my husband is devoted, but," I pretended to hesitate. "That girl Qiangwu comes from a brothel. I don't know her temperament. I don't know. Rashly bringing her in as a noble concubine might invite gossip. And I worry she'll be hard to manage later, and cause trouble for you, mother." The lady frowned deeply. "Outrageous. Signing, I thought you were sensible. I didn't expect Jinping to be so reckless, and you would go along with marrying a dancing girl. What a disgrace. Is my Anyang Marquis household a pleasure house? Anyone can just walk in." I quickly stood up and bowed to her, with utmost respect and tearful eyes, which made the lady less angry. "Mother, I understand. But on the day my husband accompanied me to visit my parents, in front of my parents and elder brother, he mentioned this matter. If I hadn't agreed, he would have surely made a scene. I was also worried about my parents' health." As I spoke, I wiped away my tears. Sure enough, my mother-in-law, upon hearing this, her expression immediately changed. She thought at first that I didn't want to cause trouble with Pei Jinping, so I let him get away with anything. I never expected his son to be so reckless. "Sit down." Jinping didn't think this through. "As for your father, I'll send someone to appease him." "You've been wronged." "No, I haven't. I know this involves the Marquis's honor, so I've already had people release Qiangwu from servitude and have my cousin adopt her as his sister. That way, the household's dignity is preserved, and my husband doesn't have to worry." Hearing this, Lady Enyang's expression finally softened. She twisted her prayer beads and finally nodded reluctantly. "Then go ahead. All expenses come from the household treasury. Also, from my personal treasury, pick a piece of jewelry you like. Consider it my compensation to you." I answered obediently. "I understand. Thank you, mother. I've already discussed with my husband to follow the old custom for a secondary consort and keep everything simple, bringing her in quietly to avoid any trouble. Once she's in the house, I'll teach her well." "Good. You've been put out." Signing, "You're too kind, mother. It's my duty." After leaving the Hall of Fortune and Longevity, I started making preparations. I ordered the sewing room to make 2 summer outfits, according to the standard for a secondary consort. I chose the darkest fabrics from storage, a deep purple and a dark blue that had been sitting for a while. The pattern was standard interlocking lotus. I also had someone clean the moon-gazing pavilion, just a superficial sweep, and placed some old, worn furniture. The bedding and curtains were only plain cotton in neutral colors. The date was set for 5 days later. At dusk, Pei Jinping came by a few times. Seeing that everything was in order, he couldn't find any fault, and his expression eased a bit. But his eyes seemed distant, probably already dreaming of the pleasures of the Fuqing pavilion. Lady Hao hasn't left the house for days. On the surface, she seems to have agreed to this marriage, but I know this fire is already burning in her heart. It just hasn't reached her son yet. Nor has it reached that vixen who hasn't even entered the house yet. So who will bear the brunt first? I stroked the jade bangle on my wrist, of the finest quality, warm and smooth to the touch. It was a gift from Lady Hao when I served tea on my wedding day. At the time, I thought it was kindness and acceptance. But now I see it's just a trinket to bind a new bride, a token to flaunt the Marquis's generosity. On the appointed day, a pink sedan chair through the side gate of the manor was carried in silently. No drums or music, no firecrackers, just a few maidservants following. But that very night, my dear husband sneaked into her room. As the legitimate wife, etiquette required me to receive the concubine's tea in the main hall. I sat at the head of the hall, wearing an extra long lotus pink dress with scattered flowers, with only a gold and jade hairpin in my hair, lightly powdered. Pei Jinping sat below me, looking a bit uneasy. His eyes kept glancing outside the hall. Qiangwu entered, her head bowed, revealing a pale, delicate neck. She moved like a willow in the wind, so pitiful that even I felt for her. She came before me, took the teacup from the maid, raised it above her head with both hands, her voice soft, trembling.
This humble one, Qiangwu, offers tea to the lady. May you enjoy good fortune and health.
I did not take it immediately. My gaze calmly fell on her trembling fingers and her lowered eyelashes. The hall was terrifyingly quiet. Pei Jinping seemed about to urge me, but a cool glance from me stopped him. A moment later, I had just reached for the teacup. My fingertips touched the cup's surface. Warm. I took a symbolic sip. I set the cup down. From the tray held by Kaiping, I picked up one that had been prepared earlier, a gold inlaid hairpin with rubies, and personally placed it in her hair. My voice was gentle and proper. Please rise. Now that you've entered the Marquis mansion, from now on, your family, serve the young master well, and know your place. The Marquis' estate won't mistreat you. Qiangwu kowtowed in thanks. As she rose, she quickly glanced at me. Her eyes were like a startled fawn, damp, hiding fear, and also a hint of barely perceptible scrutiny. Thank you, madam. Next, she offered tea to Pei Jinping. Pei Jinping took the tea, his smile becoming much more genuine. He said repeatedly, "Good, quick, rise." If I hadn't been present, he would have helped her up himself. The ceremony ended. Qiangwu was led to the Lanyu pavilion to settle in. Pei Jinping was restless. He stayed with me for half a cup of tea, then made an excuse and hurried away. His direction was naturally westward. I sat alone in the hall that gradually fell silent. Kaiping asked quietly, "Madam, would you like to retire to your room?" I shook my head. Unconsciously, my fingertips fiddled with the bracelet on my wrist. Its cool touch kept me alert. Qiangwu's arrival was like a stone tossed into the seemingly calm deep pool of the Marquis' estate. The ripples it stirred were far greater than expected, and also more subtle, no rush. Pei Jinping almost immediately lost his soul at the Moon Pavilion. The first few days, he barely remembered to come to the Hall of Clear Splendor for dinner, or to show his face at the Marchioness's place. But soon, he was completely lost in that warm nest. During the day, he'd either wander the garden with Qiangwu, flaunting their affection, or shut themselves in, listening to her play the pipa and hum soft Jiangnan tunes. At night, it was party after party. The lights of the Moon Pavilion often stayed on past midnight. The music and laughter would occasionally drift over to the main courtyard on the night breeze. Though faint, it was enough to let the whole household know just how much the young lord doted on this new concubine. At first, the Marchioness held back, thinking her son was just going through a phase, but after half a month, Pei Jinping not only failed to rein it in, but got even worse. He'd often skip the morning and evening greetings, with excuses like feeling unwell or having studied too late the night before. What the Marchioness couldn't stand even more was that, before the Marquis of Anyang left the capital, he had specially arranged for Pei Jinping a well-known tutor, a respected scholar, to coach him for next spring's imperial exam. Although Pei Jinping wasn't on the regular civil service track, before inheriting the title, having some scholarly honor would add a layer of prestige. But now, the tutor came every day on time, and Pei Jinping was missing 8 out of 10 times, no sign of him. Even when he did show, he'd yawn non-stop, completely distracted. The tutor hinted at it a few times, his face getting sorer each time.
Finally, after Pei Jinping missed 3 days in a row without seeing the tutor,
The scholar stormed off in anger, leaving behind a remark, "You can't carve rotten wood." The Marchioness's fury boiled over.
Lady Hao, the heir is so unruly and lazy. I am powerless. You're hopeless.
I'll take my leave.
Pei Jinping, you little wretch. One day, I had just finished inventorying a batch of newly arrived summer fabrics. Nanny Wang from Lady Hu's side came to the Hall of Clear Radiance with a grim face.
Lady Air, the lady requests your presence.
I knew what was coming, but remained expressionless. I changed into a plain dress and followed Nanny Wang to the Hall of Fortune and Longevity. Lady Hao was seated at the head of the main hall, fingering her prayer beads. Her face was dark enough to wring water from. Seeing me enter, she dismissed the attendants, leaving only Nanny Wang to guard the door. Signing, sit. I complied and sat at the lower seat, lowering my eyes slightly. Mother, Lady Hao cut to the chase. Do you know about Jinping's recent studies? I hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, I've heard a little, Mother. But regarding my husband's matters, I find it inappropriate to interfere too much. Besides, he often stays at the pavilion of moon gazing. Lady Hao interrupted me, her voice suddenly rising. Inappropriate to interfere. You are his lawful wife. Urging your husband to strive, guiding his words and actions, is your responsibility. Are you going to stand by and watch him have his soul stolen by a lowly maid, and throw away his future? I stood up immediately. Knelt down. Please calm down, Mother. It's my fault as a daughter-in-law. I looked up. My eyes were red-rimmed. My tone was sincere. I do want to persuade him. But my husband's heart now is all with Miss Qiangwu. If I say more, he complains I'm nagging, says I'm jealous and intolerant. A few days ago, I only mentioned that the tutor was waiting. He threw the teacup. I really am willing but powerless. As I spoke, I took out a silk handkerchief at the right moment and dabbed the corner of my eye. Lady Anyang looked at me, my face as if I might cry. Her anger grew even stronger. But not at me. She slammed the table. This is mutiny. Simply mutiny. For a worthless little thing, to disregard parents, teachers, balk a laugh, and show no respect. Signing, rise. I stood up as told, still keeping my head down. Lady Anyang took a few deep breaths, struggling to calm down. But the harshness in her eyes remained. You are the legitimate wife. You need to have some tactics. That Qiangwu is just a plaything. It's fine if she amuses Jinping, but if she dares to hinder his important matters, or sow discord between you and your husband, then she cannot stay. She paused. She looked at me, her tone turning commanding. From today onward, you keep a close eye on Jinping. Make sure he goes to the tutor every day and studies on time. If he dares to slack off again, you come and tell me. And that Qiangwu, you find an excuse and give her a good talking to. Make her understand her place. If she behaves herself, fine. But if she dares to seduce the master again, I have my ways to make her disappear completely. Yes, Mother. I understand. I respectfully agreed. My heart was cold. The Marchioness is pushing me to the front, to be the villain who urges Pei Jinping on, and the blade to intimidate Qiangwu. If I succeed, it's her good guidance. If something ugly happens, it's because I'm incompetent or jealous, but this works in my favor. Leaving Fusho Hall, I didn't go straight back to Chenghui Hall. Instead, I took a detour to the vicinity of Lanyu Pavilion. From afar, I heard the sound of a melodious pippa, mingled with a woman's soft humming, and occasionally, Pei Jinping's applause and cheers. I stopped to listen for a while, then turned and left. Back at Chenghui Hall, I immediately called Kaiping and whispered a few instructions. The next day Pei Jinping actually got up early. I personally fetched him to the study to meet the teacher. He had a sour look on his face. He was scowling at me, glaring, but due to Madame Ho's strict orders he dared not resist. He just slunk off with his head down, figuring he wouldn't be back anytime soon. I took Kaiping and 2 steward matrons and went straight to the Moon Pavilion. Qiangwu clearly didn't expect my sudden arrival. She was dressing at the mirror wearing only a flimsy gauze robe, with her hair half done. On her face still had that sleepy, sensual look. Seeing me burst in, she was startled and hastily stood up to curtsy. A flicker of panic in her eyes, she then forced herself to calm down. This concubine pays respects to the madam not knowing you were coming. I failed to welcome you, please forgive this concubine's fault. Her voice was still soft and sweet, but with less of yesterday's trembling. I didn't tell her to rise. My eyes slowly swept across the room. The furnishings were still simple, even a bit shabby. But on the dressing table were several pieces of jewelry clearly beyond a noble concubine's allowance, a large gold inlaid hairpin with green jade, a pair of southern pearl earrings, and a box of fragrant rose water. On the small table by the window was a romantic novel. Left open, next to it, half a plate of untouched delicate pastries. It seems Lady Qiangwu is quite comfortable living in the Moon Pavilion. I walked to the window, picked up the novel and flipped through it casually. Qiangwu lowered her head, her voice a bit strained.
This concubine is idle, just browsing to pass the time.
I tossed the book back onto the table, making a moderate thud, just flipping through casually. The Marquise's mansion has its rules. When a concubine enters the household, the first thing is to study women's precepts thoroughly. Inner instructions, understand etiquette, know when to advance or retreat. The books I sent over the other day. Have you read them, Miss Qiangwu? Qiangwu's body stiffened.
I've been feeling unwell these past 2 days. Not yet.
I interrupt her. My eyes fall on her rosy face. Feeling unwell? I see you look quite well, miss. If you are unwell, you should rest. These leisurely books and random notes, better not read too much of them. They might corrupt your character. I walk up to her, looking down on her from above. Her body trembles slightly. Yesterday, Mother called me for a talk, mentioned that the young master's studies have been neglected recently, and she is very worried. Mother said the young master is young, and needs someone to constantly admonish him, to guide him toward learning. Since you have the young master's favor, you should be even more careful in words and deeds, and advise the young master to focus on important matters, rather than cling to him endlessly, indulging in pleasure. Qiangwu's face turned pale.
I dare not. I only serve the young master with all my heart.
Serve? I let out a light laugh, but my tone turned cold. If serving the young master makes him disregard his parents' commands, and his teacher's teachings, and even the future of the Marquis mansion, then your service is a sin. I turn to Kaiping and say, go fetch the admonitions for women and inner teachings. Since Miss Qiangwu is unwell, and can't focus on reading, then she'll copy them 100 times. It can calm the mind and cultivate the spirit, and also help her remember the duties of a concubine. I'll come to collect them in 3 days. Qiangwu gasps in shock. She jerks her head up, her eyes full of shock and disbelief, even with a hint of resentment.
100 times? Madam, 100 times in 3 days? It's impossible to finish copying that many. I
turn around, my gaze piercing her like an icy dagger. How is it impossible? Do you think I'm deliberately making things difficult for you? Or do you think now that you've gained some favor from the young master, you can ignore the orders of the mistress, and disregard the rules of the Marquis mansion? Qiangwu hurriedly lowers her head, her voice trembling with tears.
I dare not, but
my voice is unwavering. No buts. If you feel wronged, you can go and speak to the young master. But don't forget, ordering you to copy books to calm your mind is your mother-in-law's wish. Kaiping, leave 2 people here, to attend Miss Qiangwu while she copies the books. Make sure to provide ample writing supplies. But as for meals, copying books requires concentration and a calm spirit, so greasy and meaty dishes are out. Simple porridge and vegetables each day will suffice. Got it?
yes.
Kaiping acknowledges loudly. She throws a meaningful glance at the 2 grim-faced matrons behind her, and signals with a meaningful glance. I take one last look at Qiangwu, pale-faced and swaying unsteadily, say no more, and turn to leave Lanyu Pavilion. I knew it. With Qiangwu's temperament, she wouldn't take the punishment lying down. And Pei Jinping, he'd be back soon. Sure enough, I'd barely been back at Chenghui Hall for an hour when from outside came Pei Jinping's furious roar and rapid footsteps. Song signing, get out here. Pei Jinping practically stormed in, his face livid, eyes bloodshot, veins bulging on his forehead, chest heaving violently. He was clearly at the peak of his rage. Behind him followed Qiangwu, crying pitifully, hair disheveled, as if she'd suffered a great injustice. Husband, what's the matter? Why are you so angry? I set down my teacup, stood up, and kept my voice calm, as if completely oblivious to the scene before me. With a sharp crack, Pei Jinping actually slapped me straight across the face. My ears instantly filled with a ringing sound, and half my face began to swell. I tasted a hint of metallic sweetness in my mouth. Dizzy and disoriented, I collapsed beside the table, my ribs aching from hitting the corner. Pei Jinping pointed at me, his finger trembling. What's wrong? How dare you ask? Tell me. Did you go to Lanyu Pavilion? Did you make Qiangwu copy texts 100 times and starve her? Song signing, you have such a venomous heart. Qiangwu is frail. How could she withstand your torment? You're just jealous of her being favored, so you use such despicable means against her. You jealous shrew, poisonous woman. Qiangwu shot me a smug glance, then she let out a timely soft moan, and leaned softly against Pei Jinping. With tearful eyes, sobbing,
My lord, please don't blame the lady. It's my fault. I failed to attend you properly. That made the lady and the old madam angry. I'll copy the scriptures as punishment. But 3 days, 100 times. I'm afraid I truly cannot manage it.
Pei Jinping, with concern, held Qiangwu. He glared at me angrily. Listen to her, listen to her. She's like this already. What more do you want? Song signing. I'm telling you, apologize to Qiangwu immediately. Otherwise, I won't let this go. I watched this clumsy sob story before me, felt no ripples in my heart, and even felt a little like laughing. I slowly sat down. Kaiping wanted to speak for me, but I stopped her. She quickly used a handkerchief to wipe the traces of blood from my lips. My lord, it was clearly the old madam who instructed the lady to discipline me a little. I stopped Kaiping, signaling her not to say more. Mentioning the Marquis, Pei Jinping's face changed again. He naturally knew that his mother was dissatisfied with him recently. If this matter really reaches his mother, the ones who would suffer are probably him and Qiang Wu. Seeing his hesitation, Qiang Wu cried even harder. She grabbed his sleeve. My lord, I am afraid. The lady. Is she no longer willing to tolerate me? Perhaps I should just leave. Pei Jinping, provoked by her tears, instantly cast aside all hesitation. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Song signing. Don't use my mother to pressure me. You must give me an explanation for this matter today. Revoke the punishment immediately, otherwise, I slowly stood up, straightened my disheveled clothes. The bracelet on my wrist hit the table, making a soft clink. I finally stopped hiding the coldness in my eyes. You'll what? My gaze is too cold, my tone too calm, actually made Pei Jinping, who was in a rage, at a loss for words for a moment. Husband, are you trying for a concubine to defy your mother, or for her divorce me, the legal wife? Just then, from outside the door came the stern voice of Nanny Wang.
Young master, young madam, madam requests that you both go there immediately.
The marquise was disturbed after all. The atmosphere in Blessing and Longevity Hall was even heavier than in Clear Radiance Hall. The marquise sat upright at the head. Her face was so dark it could drip water. Her gaze was like a knife. First she shot a glare at the sobbing Qiang Wu, then swept over Pei Jinping, whose face was full of defiance, and finally landed on my swollen face. The marquise's voice was not loud, but carried an unquestionable authority. Speak. What's the fuss now? Pei Jinping spoke first, exaggerating the story as he told it. Naturally, how I was mean and jealous, how I punished Qiang Wu without reason, how Qiang Wu was weak and pitiful. The marquise listened quietly until he finished, then looked at me. Signing, what do you have to say? I bent my knee in a bow, and recounted the whole matter, including the marquise's previous instructions, in full detail. My tone was objective, impartial. The marquise's brow furrowed deeper. She could naturally tell who was evading the main issue, especially when she heard that Pei Jinping, for Qiang Wu, dared to yell at his legal wife, and even struck and cursed her. The fury in her eyes almost erupted. The marquise suddenly slammed the table, making the teacups rattle. Unfilial son. For a woman like that, you've lost all shame. Do you still have any respect for me as your mother? Or the rules of this household? Pei Jinping wanted to argue. Mother, it was Song signing who. The marquise sternly cut him off. Her chest heaved violently. Silence. It was my idea to have signing make her copy texts. What? I'm not dead yet. Does my word no longer count in the women's quarters of this household? She pointed at Qiang Wu. Her finger trembled with rage. Look at her. She's only been in this house a few days, and she's already got you completely bewitched. Neglecting your studies, talking back to the tutor, and now you don't even respect your lawful wife. What good is such a vixen? Why keep her around? To keep sowing discord between you and your wife, turning this household upside down. Qiang Wu was scared out of her wits. She dropped to her knees with a thud. She kowtowed repeatedly. Please calm down, madam. I know I was wrong. I won't ever dare do it again. Please have mercy, madam. Pei Jinping panicked too. He knelt down and begged for mercy. Mother, I'm the one to blame for everything. I was wrong. Qiang Wu is not to blame. Please forgive her this once. Forgive her. The marquise sneered. She looked at Qiang Wu trembling on the ground, with no pity in her eyes, only disgust. A dancer from a lowly background, using some seductive trick to latch onto you, and even in the marquis estate, you can't behave. Keeping her will only bring trouble. Amma Wang.
Old servant here. Go find a slave trader.
Sell this wench, the farther the better. My house of the Marquis of Anyang cannot tolerate such a shameless instigator. Qiang Wu let out a piercing scream, lunged over and grabbed Pei Jinping's leg. No, young master. Young master, save me.
Help me. I don't want to be sold. Young master, you promised me, you said you would protect me.
Pei Jinping grew desperate too. He hugged Qiang Wu tightly and shouted hoarsely at the marquise. Mother, you can't sell her. Your son begs you. I can't live without her. If you sell her, I won't live either. The marquise was so furious at his nonsense that she saw stars. She pointed at him, speechless for a long time. The hall was in chaos. Qiang Wu's wails, Pei Jinping's pleas, the marquise's scolding, all mixed together. I stood quietly to one side watching this farce coldly, like an outsider looking in with a cold, calm heart, even a hint of resigned quiet. Being sold off might be a clean end. But it won't be that easy. Pei Jinping didn't really make a scene or threaten suicide to save Qiang Wu. The marquise, at his outrageous words, was so furious she nearly collapsed. Her chest heaved for a long time in the end. She pitied herself, her only son, and, choking with anger, was helped to sit down by Mammy Wang, and only revived after half a cup of ginseng tea. Qiangwu's life was temporarily spared, but though her life was saved, she won't escape punishment. The Marquise closed her eyes, fingering her prayer beads, her voice filled with deep weariness and unyielding resolve. Since you're so protective of her, fine, I'll let it go, but from now on, without my permission, she is not to set foot outside Lanyu Pavilion. Her daily supplies shall be at the lowest grade, the standard of a rough maid. Isn't she weak in health? Simple meals are just right for recovery. Mammy Wang, have the pavilion watched closely. If she is allowed to step out, or if anyone dares to secretly help her, they will be punished by family law and sold off. This is to completely confine Qiangwu, grinding away all her possible claws and radiance. Pei Jinping's face changed. He wanted to argue further, but seeing his mother's ashen face and the determination in her eyes, he didn't dare say another word. He just held tightly in his arms Qiangwu, who was trembling uncontrollably, and whispered in response,
Your son thanks you for your mercy, mother.
The whole incident ended with Qiangwu being completely banished to the cold palace. Lady Ho, supported by Nanny Wang, returned to her inner chamber. Before leaving, she gave me a deep look. That look was complex, with guilt, warning, and also a trace of resentment at the damage to her own authority. I lowered my eyes to avoid that gaze. Pei Jinping, supporting the sobbing Qiangwu, left Fusho Hall. From beginning to end, he didn't even glance at me, let alone feel any remorse for that slap, or those filthy words. My cheek still stung with pain, and there was a dull ache in my ribs. Kaiping supported me back to Chenghui Hall, and as soon as we entered, tears fell. She hurriedly searched for the medicine box. Are you in pain, my lady? I'll apply medicine for you right away. How could the air be so heavy-handed? In the bronze mirror, my half-swollen cheek is reflected, with clear fingerprints on it. At the broken corner of my lip, the blood has dried into a dark red. With my pale, makeup-free face, I look especially miserable and pathetic. I wave my hand, signaling Kaiping to hold off for now. I walk to the window myself, looking out at the courtyard shrouded in dusk. Clusters of carefully tended flowers and shrubs sway in the evening breeze, graceful but lifeless. Just like this Marquis manor, just like my seemingly glamorous, but actually cold marriage. Apply the medicine later. I hear my own voice, unusually calm. Go to the small kitchen and see if there's ice, get some, and wrap it in a clean cloth. Kaiping acknowledged and went, quickly brought back ice, carefully wrapped it in fine cotton cloth, and handed it to me. The cold touch meets my burning, aching cheek, bringing a sharp sting, followed by numbing relief. Pei Jinping came on the evening of the third day. Since Qiangwu was grounded and cut off from allowances, exactly 2.5 days had passed. He stepped in hesitantly, his face unnatural, his eyes darting, first scanning the room, then finally settling on me. The swelling on my face hadn't fully subsided, the bruise at the corner of my mouth was especially noticeable, and I hadn't bothered to cover it with makeup. I was sitting on the couch by the window, using the last bit of daylight to read a book of essays. A cup of green tea sat by my hand. Madam, he began, his voice a little hoarse, paused, then continued. Is your face feeling better? I put down the book, looked up at him, my gaze calm and unruffled. You needn't worry, I'm fine now. My composure clearly unsettled him. He had probably expected me to cry, to question, or even to give him the cold shoulder, but he never expected such as if nothing had happened. He rubbed his hands together, stopping a few steps away. After another moment of silence, as if he had made up his mind, he said stiffly, that day was my fault. I shouldn't have hit you. I was just overwhelmed by anger. Qiangwu is locked in the Lanyu Pavilion, mother cut off her supplies, not even proper food. She's already frail, at this rate, she might. What are you trying to say, husband? Pei Jinping was taken aback, a flicker of embarrassment on his face, which was quickly replaced by entitlement. I know, I was impulsive and misunderstood you a few days ago. But Qiangwu is innocent after all. She's in a difficult situation now. I just hope you could look after her privately, send her some food and clothes, or some money. I'll talk to mother myself, so you won't be implicated. He said it with such conviction, as if I were just a tool in his hands, something to serve his beloved, a convenient instrument. He didn't even, for that day's brutality, offer a genuine apology. I looked at this nominal husband of mine, his handsome features still there, yet they could no longer stir any emotion in me. Only endless absurdity and coldness remained. I gently touched my still aching cheek, my fingertips brushing the slightly swollen skin. Then, under his nervous and expectant gaze, I slowly nodded. Pei Jinping was stunned. He probably didn't expect me to agree so readily, without even making any conditions, without showing any grievance. Okay. He opened his mouth, as if to confirm. You agreed. I picked up the teacup, and took a sip of the now cold tea. Since my husband has spoken, it would be improper for me not to comply. But mother's orders are strict, so we must be cautious. I'll have Kaiping arrange someone trustworthy to deliver it secretly at night, without anyone noticing. Good, good. A look of delight immediately spread across Pei Jinping's face. The earlier awkwardness and unnaturalness vanished completely, as if a huge problem had been solved.
Signing, I knew it. You've always been the most sensible and kind-hearted.
He took 2 steps forward, as if wanting to get closer, to express closeness or gratitude, but when his eyes fell on the scars on my face, he stopped in his tracks. That faint, just arising and sparse sense of guilt was replaced by an indescribable irritation.
Then I'll leave it to you, my lady. I have things to do, I'll take my leave now.
He turned around almost hastily, and quickly left Chenghui Hall, as if staying another moment would suffocate him.
Princess, why did you agree? Does he even deserve this from you? That Xiangwu is nothing but a scourge.
I set down my teacup, and gazed at the sky that had fully darkened outside the window. Lanterns under the eaves were lit one by one, casting dim, swaying halos of light. Agreeing is one thing, but how to handle it is another. Kaiping, go tell the small kitchen to prepare the most ordinary meal according to the ration for a third-class maid, and after dark, have that boozy old Wang from the west side gate deliver it to Lanyu Pavilion. Be sure to let him accidentally let it slip, that it was the heir who begged repeatedly, and the princess, soft-hearted, risked helping her.
Understood, ma'am. We need to make Xiangwu owe you the favor, and also let the gatekeeper know that it was the heir's order. If something happens, it won't be traced back to you. Instead, it'll confirm that the heir disobeyed the matriarch's command.
I gave a slight nod, and said no more. Soft-hearted, no. I just need to put Pei Jinping at ease for now, and also need, in the eyes of the Marquise, to maintain my image of being virtuous, generous, reluctantly compliant. And the scars on my face are my silent accusation and leverage, reminding everyone, especially the Marquise, what I've endured in this marriage. In the next few days, Pei Jinping indeed didn't show up again. Maybe he felt awkward, or maybe he was busy in front of the Marquise mediating for Qiangwu. Or perhaps after I calmly agreed that day, the faint ripple in his heart that he himself didn't want to probe made him not want to face me for the time being. The Marquis manner appeared calm on the surface. After this incident, the Marquise seemed tired, except for the necessary morning and evening greetings. She spent most of her time in the prayer hall, and gradually asked less about household affairs. I enjoyed the peace and quiet. Every day, besides managing the household, I just read and practiced calligraphy, and looked after my dowry shops. It was as if I had truly become a non-competitive mistress of the Marquis manor, until about half a month later, one sultry afternoon, Kaiping hurried in from outside, her face showing shock and uncertainty. She dismissed the servants, then lowered her voice and said to me, "Lady Heir, outside. Outside there are some bad rumors." I didn't look up, my pen still tracing on the ledger.
About the heir.
It was Kaiping's voice, filled with indescribable indignation and contempt.
She said, the heir apparent
Has been frequenting Liu Xiang tea house in the West City lately, and is quite close with a young lady surnamed Liu.
That young lady is from the South City Military Command, a distant niece of Commander Liu. Her father seems to be an out-of-town official, a 9th-rank county magistrate. And she is a concubine's daughter.
Yesterday, someone saw with their own eyes the heir and that girl in a private room at the tea house, behaving intimately.
That girl's maid was standing guard outside. Now the news has spread quietly.
The brush tip paused on the paper, twisting open a small blot of ink. The name Liu Nianian carries more weight than Qiangwu. A 9th-rank magistrate's concubine-born daughter, though lowly in status, is still from an official family, a pure and honest girl. Commander Liu's distant niece. This connection, though distant, barely brushes the edges of officialdom. I put down the brush, gently blow-dry the ink on the paper. I asked Mother, has word reached over there? Probably. It hasn't been deliberately brought to the old lady's ears, but the servants are probably gossiping already. Kaiping looked at me worriedly. Eldest young madam, this time might be more troublesome than that Qiangwu incident. Miss Liu is after all from a respectable family. If the heir truly has intentions, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as a noble concubine. I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. No matter, let's see how the heir plans to settle his lady love this time. This time, Pei Jinping didn't make me wait long. The rumors brewed for a couple of days. One afternoon, he personally came to Chenghui Hall. This time, the embarrassment from last time was gone from his face. Instead, there was a reluctance mixed with irritation, and a certain reckless finality. He didn't even exchange pleasantries. He walked straight up to me. Got straight to the point. Signing, I need to discuss something with you. I signaled Kaiping to serve tea. Then I quietly watched him. Pei Jinping picked up the teacup, but didn't drink. He just irritably skimmed the foam with the lid. After a long pause, as if throwing caution to the wind. The rumors outside have been rampant. He is finally going to show his cards. The rumors outside, I'm sure you've heard them too. It's true, I do know Miss Liu. Her name is Nian Nian. She's Commander Liu's niece. She is well-educated and reasonable. Gentle-natured, unlike Qiang Wu. He set down his teacup, staring at me intently. His tone carried that again, smug gentleness. I truly admire Nian Nian. My heart sank little by little. A cold chill spread through me, but my face remained expressionless. I just listened quietly. Xining, you've always been magnanimous and virtuous. You even tolerated the matter with Qiang Wu. Although Nian Nian's family isn't prominent, she's from a good family. She's from a good family. She has high aspirations. She's unwilling to be a concubine and suffer such indignities. Pei Jinping leaned forward. His voice lowered, yet carried an unmistakable tone. So what I mean is, let Nian Nian be your co-wife. Enter the household together. Don't worry, you'll always be the principal wife. You'll still manage the family's affairs. Nian Nian won't contend with you. You two can call each other sisters. Live in harmony. Serve me together. Wouldn't that be wonderful, co-wife? He actually dared to suggest it. I slowly lifted my eyes to look at him. For a long time, until the forced gentleness on his face almost couldn't hold up any longer, he finally spoke slowly. His voice was clear and calm. I disagree. Pei Jinping's expression shifted. Why? Xining, you were never like this before. Aren't you the one who always understands the bigger picture? Nianian, I cut him off. My tone remained steady, but carried an unmistakable firmness. Husband, the Pei family is a noble marquis's household. You are the future marquis of Anyang. Taking a legitimate daughter of a merchant as your principal wife was already a compromise. Now, to elevate a mere concubine's daughter of a 9th-rank magistrate to an equal wife, standing alongside your principal wife, do you think the threshold of the Anyang Marquis manor is too high, and needs such self-degradation to see add a touch of romance? Or do you think my Song family, my father, brothers, and uncles, can be so humiliated by you? Pei Jinping's face turned livid at my words. You, Song Xining, don't you dare use your family to pressure me. This Anyang Marquis manor is not for your Song family to decide. My taking an equal wife is a family matter. I stood up to look him in the eye. Since it's a family matter, then please go discuss it with your father and mother. If they agree, then you may take Miss Liu as your equal wife. When that time comes, without you having to say a word, I will step aside and leave, and never be in your way. Pei Jinping, faced with my unyielding attitude, was burning with anger. He pointed at me, his fingers trembling. You just, Song Xining, you've become quite impressive. Let's see whether father and mother listen to you or to me. He flicked his sleeves and left in a huff, slamming the door so hard it echoed. I stood there, my posture straight, only the tips of my fingers by my side digging slightly into my palms. I knew this wouldn't end here. The fact that Pei Jinping dared to bring it up meant he had some backing, or he was pushed to a corner. Sure enough, the next morning, Wang Mami, the Marquise's senior maid, came. Her expression was more serious than ever.
Madam, the Marchioness requests your presence.
Inside the Hall of Fortune and Longevity, the atmosphere was so thick you could cut it. The Marchioness sat at the head, her face the ugliest I'd ever seen, with heavy dark circles under her eyes, clearly having not slept all night. Pei Jinping stood by the side, with defiance and a hint of smugness on his face. The Marchioness's voice was thick with exhaustion. Xining, you're here. Have a seat. I sat as instructed, waiting for what came next. The Marchioness was silent for a long time, before letting out a long sigh. She glanced at me, a complex look in her eyes, and spoke. What happened between Jinping and Miss Liu? I know all about it. Xining, I know this is Jinping's fault, and you've been wronged. I looked down, saying nothing. But then the Marchioness changed her tone, her voice turning strained. But Miss Liu, she's already pregnant. I looked up at her sharply. The Marquise avoided my gaze. Her fingers, twisting the prayer beads, trembled slightly. The doctor confirmed it over a month ago. It's the blood of the Enyang Marquis mansion. Pei Jinping exclaimed urgently, Mother, that's your son's own flesh and blood, your own grandchild. We can't let him be abandoned and become a shameful illegitimate child. Nian Nian is also from a good family. Now she's pregnant. If we don't give her a proper status, the Liu family won't be satisfied. Commander Liu is only a 5th-rank official, but he has some connections in the capital. If it becomes a scandal, it would embarrass the Marquis' mansion. The Marquis sternly scolded him. Shut up. She then turned to me. Her tone softened. With a tone almost pleading. Xining, I know this request is too much. A wife of equal rank is absolutely impossible. It goes against reason. And it would hurt your dignity. Hurt the Song family's dignity. But the child is innocent. What do you think of this? We'll still follow the rights for a noble concubine, and bring Miss Liu into the house. But after she gives birth, if it's a boy, he'll be registered under your name. Raised as your legitimate son. You will still be the heir's wife, the future marquise. No one can shake your position. As for Miss Lu, the mansion will never mistreat her. But she will never surpass you. Just think of it as for the sake of the marquis lineage. For Jinping, can you bear this for once? Register it under my name as a legitimate son. I almost laughed out loud. What a cunning plan. Trying to maintain the marquis mansion's crumbling dignity while also securing an heir and forcing me, the lawful wife, to raise my husband's child with another woman to tie me down with that and keep me slaving away for this filthy household for the rest of my life. I looked at the Marchioness's seemingly earnest yet utterly selfish face, then at Pei Jinping, his relieved expression at finally getting his way. The last shred of hope I had for this mansion and this marriage completely died out. A cold calm washed over me. Even with a sense of relieved finality, I slowly stood up, walked to the center of the hall, and facing the Marchioness made a formal deep bow. Then I lifted my head, my gaze clear and firm. Word by word I said clearly, "Mother, your meaning is clear, I understand." Indeed, the Marcus bloodline cannot be left outside. The faces of the Marchioness and Pei Jinping both showed relief. But then my next words froze them instantly. My voice was low but resolute, echoing in the silent hall. In that case, in order not to hinder the Marcus's descendants from acknowledging their lineage, to spare my husband the trouble, and to preserve Miss Lu's dignity, as well as that of her unborn child, I, your daughter-in-law, request to leave this household. I beg you, Mother, to allow me to divorce the heir. The word divorce struck like a thunderbolt, exploding in the hall of blessings and longevity. The prayer beads in the Marquise's hand snapped and fell to the ground. Beads rolled everywhere. Her eyes widened as she stared at me in disbelief. Her lips trembled, and it was a long moment before she spoke. What did you say? Divorce? Signing? Have you lost your mind? Pei Jinping abruptly stepped forward, as if seeing me clearly for the first time, staring at me intently. The initial shock on his face was quickly replaced by a sense of insulted anger and contempt. Song signing. He barked. His voice, due to agitation, was a bit shrill. Do you even know what you're saying? Divorce? How dare you mention divorce? I gazed at him calmly, meeting his furious gaze. I even curled my lips slightly, a smile devoid of warmth, only endless indifference and detachment. Yes, divorce. Since you, young lord, have found true love and are about to have a beloved son, holding on to the position of your wife would only be an eyesore. Better to let you and Miss Lu be together, and avoid future strife and conflict and turmoil in the household. Pei Jinping is so angry that the veins on his forehead are bulging. As if my letting you go is a great insult to him. You say let go so lightly. Song signing. Who do you think you are? A fairy descending to earth? Away from me and the Enyang Marquis estate, you, a woman divorced and returned to your family, what future do you have? With you being so rigid and boring, no sense of humor, no romantic charm, can't even keep your own husband's heart, what man would still want you? His words are like knives dipped in poison, each sentence, trying to pierce through my last shred of dignity. Rigid and boring, no sense of humor, no romantic charm, so in his eyes, the propriety I've adhered to, the dignity I've maintained, the forbearance I've shown, are all so worthless. The Marquise also came to her senses and quickly said, Xening, don't say that in anger. Jinping is talking nonsense. You were married into the Pei family with all proper ceremonies, the legitimate heir's wife. No one can shake your position. Even if that Lady Liu comes in and bears a son, registered under your name, he would be your son. In the future, everything in this Marquis estate will be yours. Divorce is absolutely out of the question. How could your parents save face? How could your elder brother hold his head up? He tried to use family reputation and affection to pressure me. Yet he never mentioned the humiliation and harm I suffered in this matter. I looked at the mother and son, one furiously insulting, the other earnestly advising, but both with the same goal, to tie me firmly to this already rotten and dilapidated ship. The last ripple in my heart also fell into dead silence. I gently lifted my hand and touched my cheek. The redness and swelling there had long subsided, but the stinging pain from his slap that day still seemed to linger deep in my skin. Then my hand slowly dropped, and I straightened my sleeve. The movement was calm and unhurried. I spoke again, my voice still steady, but with a determination that left no room for turning back. Mother, heir, I have made up my mind. It's not said in anger, nor is it a threat. The prestige of the Enyang Marquis Manor I, Song signing, cannot and dare not aspire to it anymore. Since you, my husband, find me boring and unworthy to be your wife, why should I force us to grow tired of each other? I turned to Pei Jinping, my eyes clear and bright, like a winter spring. As for leaving the manor, whether anyone will want me, whether I still have a future, that need not trouble the heir. After saying this, I didn't look at their instantly ugly expressions. Instead, I turned to Kaiping, who was waiting outside the door, and nodded slightly. Kaiping understood. She immediately picked up an ebony tray and walked in. Neatly on the tray lay an unfolded document. The ink had long dried, the edges of the paper were smooth. Clearly, it had been prepared for some time. Under the astonished gazes of Lady Ho and Pei Jinping, I stepped forward. I personally took the tray and placed it onto the rosewood tea table before Lady Ho. This is the divorce agreement. I have signed and affixed my fingerprint. I pointed to the end of the document, the clear and elegant name song signing, and the bright red fingerprint. All that's needed is the heir's signature, and the seals of the Marquis and his wife, then it will take effect. The dowry ledger from my marriage into the Ho mansion, the details are here. Every single item can be verified, every single measure can be checked. The betrothal gifts from the Ho family, except for consumables, the rest are returned as is. From now on, we are free to marry others, and no longer have any connection. A deathly silence fell over the hall. Lady Ho stared at the clauses, the clear divorce agreement, her fingers trembling. She wanted to reach for it, but then pulled back as if burned. The look in her eyes as she stared at me was filled with shock and confusion, and a hint of hidden panic. She probably never imagined that I, the daughter-in-law she saw as docile and sensible, easy to control, could have such a resolute side. And that I had prepared this far in advance. Pei Jinping looked as if struck by lightning, staring blankly at the divorce agreement, then suddenly looked up at me again. His face still held anger, mixed with disbelief, and an almost bewildered expression. He tried to say something. He opened his mouth, only to find all his demeaning and threatening words in the face of this black and white document seemed so pale and ridiculous. His voice was dry, with a barely perceptible tremor. You had it all prepared. Since the incident with Miss Qiangwu, I've been thinking whether this kind of life is really the fate I want. Now that Miss Liu is pregnant, and you intend to take a second wife, it's just made me finally make up my mind. That's all. Signing, as the lady of the Marquis, she finally found her voice, with a last struggle and harshness. Have you thought this through? Divorce is no joke. If you walk out of the Marquis' mansion today, you will no longer be a wife of the Pei family. All past bonds will be cut off. I interrupted her. For the first and last time, in such a calm and distant tone, I addressed her. Motherly affection. The marriage between the Marquis' house and the Song family was always a transaction. Where would deep affection come from? As for me, I paused, my eyes swept over this magnificent yet cold and oppressive hall. What I want, the Marquis' mansion cannot give me. What the mansion wants, I can no longer give either. So, a clean break is the best. After I finished speaking, I stepped back and bowed deeply to Lady Ho once more. Then, I straightened up, without looking at any of them, and turned and walked toward the entrance of Fushu Hall. My steps were steady, my back straight. Kaiping followed closely behind me. Her eyes red, but she held back her tears. She just placed the dowry list in her hand, gently beside the divorce agreement. Walking out of Fushu Hall, the afternoon sun was a bit dazzling. I squinted slightly, and raised my hand to shield my eyes. Behind me came the faint sound of shattering porcelain, and Pei Jinping's low growl of suppressed anger, along with Lady Hao's rapid breathing, and the sound of her ordering the servants. Empress Dowager. When the Empress Dowager's decree reached the Anyang Marquis' residence, inside Chenghui Hall, my personal trunks were already mostly packed. Kaiping tied the last scroll, carefully, and placed it into the brocade box. When she looked up, her eyes were still red, but she bit her lip and didn't let the tears fall. She came to my side, and reported softly, "Miss,
It's all set. Lady House sent Nanny Wang again, saying you must go over. Everything can be discussed."
I'm facing a bronze mirror with a lotus design. My face in it looks a bit pale, there's a faint weariness under my eyes, but my gaze is clear and calm, not a trace of hesitation or fear. No need. I stand up, straighten out the slightly worn, lilac-colored quilt I'm wearing. Everything that needed to be said, I already said it all yesterday at Fushu Hall. Go tell Mistress Wang that my mind is made up. I won't impose any longer. Once my brother arrives, we'll leave through the side gate. Kaiping acknowledged, and was about to leave, when outside the door, rapid footsteps were heard, mixed with the jingling of ornaments and muffled sobbing. The door curtain was flung open with a swish. Marquis Anyang's wife leaned on Mistress Wang's arm, and had come in person. Behind her followed Pei Jinping, with bloodshot eyes. In just one night, the Marquis' wife seemed to have aged 10 years. The silver strands in her hair stood out, and even makeup couldn't hide the dark circles and haggardness under her eyes. She saw the packed luggage in the room, and her lips trembled violently. Tears flowed before she spoke. She pulled her hand away from Mistress Wang, stumbled forward to grab my hand, but I gently avoided her. Her hand froze in midair, her face streaked with tears. Signing, are you really so heartless, leaving no room for negotiation? Even if you don't care for my old face, at least think of the bond between you and Jinping after more than a year of marriage. Pei Jinping stood behind her, staring at me intently. His eyes churned with anger and resentment, and even a trace of panic he himself hadn't noticed. The main hall of the Anyang Marquis' residence today seemed especially dim. The light streaming through the lattice seemed to be frozen by the oppressive atmosphere. Empress Dowager Song Xining has issued her decree, summoning you to the palace. Are you going to defy even the Empress Dowager? No matter how powerful your Song family is, can it be greater than the imperial family? His voice was harsh, as if someone had grabbed him by the throat. I slowly turned around, my gaze calmly sweeping over the mother and son. That look was as if I was seeing two complete strangers. Mother, I still used that title, but there wasn't a trace of warmth. Yesterday, I already made it clear we'd part amicably. The Empress Dowager kindly summons me to court for questioning. Of course I will go and state my case. As for the marital bond, my eyes fell on Pei Jinping's face. On it, still lingered the flush from yesterday's argument, and the forced ferocity of this moment. Looking at this face, I found it utterly ironic. If the heir had even a shred of marital affection, he wouldn't have, on the day of the return visit, proposed taking a prostitute as a concubine. He wouldn't have struck me across the face to protect that Qiang Wu. And he certainly wouldn't have, after learning Lady Liu was pregnant, intended to use the position of equal wife to humiliate my Song family's honor. The affection has long been worn away by one incident after another. Now all that's left is a divorce agreement, clear and clean. It's better for both of us. Pei Jinping was choked by my words, his blood surging, veins bulging at his temples. Hello, you have a sharp tongue. Song Xining, I'm telling you, leaving the Marquis Manor today is easy. But if you regret it one day, even if you beg on your knees to return, the Anyang Marquis Manor will never take you back. Jinping, shut up. Empress Dowager Xining must want to mediate. She cares about you, and values our manor. Go to the palace and talk to Her Highness nicely. Her Highness's words carry weight. There must be a way to satisfy both sides. That Lady Liu will never let her overstep you. When the child is born, it will be brought to you. You will always be the legal mother. I gently shake my head, interrupting her self-righteous perfect solution. Mother, say no more. Though I, Xining, am not talented, I know the saying, better to be a broken jade than an intact tile. As for Her Highness the Empress Dowager, I will explain myself. No longer looking at them, their instantly ashen faces, I turn to Kaiping and say, let's go. Song Xining, you wouldn't dare. Just then, from outside the courtyard, came the sound of steady, forceful footsteps, accompanied by the slight rustle of armor. A tall figure appeared at the door, silhouetted against the light, his outline as majestic as a mountain.
Signing. Are you ready?
My brother's voice, with the cold, hard edge forged by the winds and sands of the border. His eyes were like lightning, first sweeping the room, then landing on me. A flicker of concern passed through his eyes, quickly turning into solid support. I knew I had a home. Behind him followed several soldiers of the Song mansion, standing in silence, with an imposing manner. Seeing my elder brother, the last bit of unsettled dust in my heart finally settled completely. I stepped forward, my voice slightly choked, then I forced it down. Brother, are you all right? Song Chenji nodded, and pressed my shoulder gently with his big hand, then looked at Madame Hu and Pei Jinping, his tone cold as ice, fire burning in his eyes.
Madam Hu, young master, my father and mother, heard that my sister was treated unjustly in your mansion, and they are deeply distressed. Today, by my parents' orders, I am taking my sister home. As for the divorce, the Song family has no objections.
As for Her Majesty the Empress Dowager, the Song family will explain ourselves.
No need for your house to trouble yourselves.
If you still try to stop us, I'll risk all my military honors to fight it out with the Anyang Marquis.
His words were brief, but every word carried weight. He blocked all possible arguments from the mansion. Pei Jinping's face turned red and white, under my brother's overwhelming presence and the cold stares of those soldiers. He ultimately dared not step forward. He only squeezed out a few words. Good, very good. You Song family. Young master, watch your words.
My brother cut him off coldly. After today, we go our separate ways. My younger sister has been at your manor for over a year. What she gained and lost we both know well. I, Song, have said all I need. I take my leave.
He said no more. Signaling for his soldiers to lift my luggage, he escorted me straight out. The Marquise collapsed into a chair, covering her face and weeping bitterly. Pei Jinping stood still, his fists clenched so tightly they cracked, staring fiercely at my retreating back, his gaze like a poisoned blade. I walked out of Chenghui Hall, out that gate I had passed through for over a year, toward the side gate of the Marquis' mansion. Outside the side gate, the Song family carriage was already waiting. Before stepping onto the carriage, I took one last look at the Anyang Marquis' mansion. The high-hanging plaque, the vermilion gate unchanged, the deep courtyard, yet they no longer stirred any ripple in my heart. But for some reason, the Empress Dowager, after simply asking the reason, rebuked Pei Jinping a few words, then granted my request for divorce. On the way back home from the palace, my palanquin was stopped by Pei Jinping. A familiar, sarcastic voice sounded ahead. Our carriage was stopped. Song signing. You really have a silver tongue, even convincing the Empress Dowager to speak for you. Pei Jinping actually rode his horse to block the road. I didn't know when he left the palace, or maybe he never went far, waiting here on purpose. His face was still dark. His eyes were bloodshot. He glared at my carriage. His gaze seemed to burn through the curtain. Passers-by gradually gathered, staring curiously, whispering among themselves. The Marquis of Anyang's heir and his former wife, confronting each other in the street. This was a rare spectacle. My brother's face turned cold. He gripped his sword hilt and was about to get off. I gently held his hand, shook my head. Then I lifted the carriage curtain myself and stepped down. Standing on the bustling street, I stood facing Pei Jinping on horseback. Behind him were a few of his usual gang of hooligans, all wearing narrow, sneering expressions, enjoying the show. Pei Jinping looked down at me from his horse. His voice, trembling with excitement and a twisted hatred, rose sharply, cutting through the air. Song signing. You finally got what you wanted. Once you leave my Anyang Marquise's mansion, what are you, a discarded wife? A fallen woman? Do you think without me, you can find a better place? In all of the capital, no man under heaven would want a woman like you, who disregards propriety, a jealous and vicious woman. His words were vicious to the extreme. Every word struck the heart. The surrounding crowd let out a buzz of whispers. Their eyes showed varied reactions. Some were gloating, some sympathetic, and many fell on Pei Jinping, carrying resentment toward the arrogance of the privileged. Upon hearing this, he flew into a rage, stepped out of the carriage, and strode forward, his hand already on his sword.
Pei Jinping, you're asking for death.
I stopped my brother again, my chest churning with fury, cold and rage intertwined, yet on my face, I grew eerily calm. I looked at Pei Jinping. That face, which I once thought handsome, suddenly seemed utterly ridiculous, and utterly pitiable. My gaze passed over him, and swept to the street. A figure caught my eye. The man held a horse, standing beside a tea stall not far off, seeming like an ordinary passerby, drawn by the commotion, stopping to watch. He was plainly dressed, even somewhat worn, like a common groom or guard, yet he was very tall, broad-shouldered and straight-backed. Even standing silently in the crowd, he had a presence hard to ignore. His face half covered by an old hood, concealing most of his features, revealing only a clearly defined jaw, and tightly pressed lips. In a flash, an almost absurd thought crossed my mind. I raised my hand, pointing at the man with the horse, my voice not loud, but clear to all around. With a decisive, final resolve. Him. Everyone froze, including Pei Jinping, including my elder brother, and also the man being pointed at. I stepped forward, walked up to that man. Lifting my head, I heard my own voice, dry, yet unusually clear. Will you marry me? Dead silence. Even the street noise seemed to fade away instantly. Everyone's eyes went wide. Can't believe what they just heard. The eldest daughter of the Song family, the recently divorced wife of the Marquis of Anyang's heir, actually, right there on the street, to a servant who looks like a groom, proposed marriage. After the initial shock, Pei Jinping burst into crazy laughter, laughed so hard he doubled over. Tears almost came out. His scoundrel friends around him also joined in the jeering laughter, full of contempt and mockery. Haha, song signing, you really have gone crazy, stooping so low as to find a groom. Haha, very well, very well. This heir wants to see what good outcome you two lovebirds will have. I clenched my teeth so hard. My fingertips dug into my palms, just to keep my body straight. And my face calm. I knew I was doing something shocking, but Pei Jinping's sneer was like countless needles stabbing me, making me bleed. I need a counterattack, even if this counterattack looks so foolish and reckless. The man I'm pointing at hasn't spoken a word. Under the shadow of his hood, I can't see his expression. Just as Pei Jinping's laughter and the whispers of the crowd reached their peak, he moved. He slowly raised his hand and took off that worn hood. He spoke. His voice was not loud, even a bit low and hoarse, but strangely, it drowned out all the noise. The 4 words I couldn't ask for more calmly and plainly, but like a boulder thrown into an icy lake, it instantly froze all sounds. Pei Jinping's laughter stopped abruptly, like a duck whose neck was grabbed. The sneer on his face froze, turning into astonishment. The onlookers were also stunned, looking at that impressive man, then at me,
and then at Pei Jinping with his ashen face.
Completely confused about what was going on. The man finished speaking, shifted his gaze from my face to Pei Jinping. His eyes were still calm, but they made Pei Jinping involuntarily step back half a step, as if struck by an invisible blade. The heir of Anyang Marquis publicly insults a virtuous woman.
Speaks rudely. This is the upbringing of the Anyang Marquis's household.
Pei Jinping's face alternated between red and pale. Shocked and furious. Who are you? How dare you lecture me, this prince? The man didn't answer. He just handed the reins in his hand casually to a nearby attendant who was already stunned, looking like a servant. Then, he nodded slightly to me. Miss Song, it's noisy here. Perhaps you should head back to the mansion first.
In 3 days, Xie will personally visit to discuss the marriage.
I was a bit stunned. I hadn't yet recovered from his words when I reacted. I only nodded dumbly. Brother, Song Chengyi finally snapped out of it too. He gave the man a deep look. In his eyes, a flash of extreme shock and understanding passed. Then he stepped forward and whispered to me, signing, "Let's go back first." I nodded. Finally, I glanced at Pei Jinping, who stood frozen, and at the shock on his face that had yet to fade, along with the growing doubt and unease. I turned and boarded the carriage again. The carriage drove away, leaving that eerie silence and countless probing gazes behind. Inside the carriage, my brother was silent for a long time before finally speaking, his voice carrying an indescribable complexity. Signing, "Do you know who that man was just now?" I shook my head. My heart was still pounding. Song Chengyi closed his eyes. He uttered a shocking name.
Xie, the regent of the court, Xie.
Marquis Anyang
rushed back to the capital at full speed.
As soon as he entered the mansion, without even changing clothes, he went straight to the ancestral hall. The heavy wooden door slammed shut in front of Pei Jinping, cutting off all prying eyes from outside. Meanwhile, Lady Anyang, crying and pleading, fainted outside the door, and was carried away by maids and servants in a rush. Inside the ancestral hall, only the heavy breathing of Marquis Anyang could be heard, the whip's sinister laugh, and Pei Jinping's uncontrollable screams of agony.
And cried out, "You wicked, unfilial son! The century-old reputation of the Anyang mansion has been shamed by you. How dare you act so insolently before the Empress Dowager, publicly humiliating a divorced woman who is also the daughter of the Song family? Do you have a death wish? That Song kid just earned military merit at the border. He's highly favored by the emperor. And the Prince Regent Xie, you dared to provoke him in public? Do you think our mansion is too safe and peaceful? Are you determined to bring disaster upon us?"
Father, your son knows he was wrong. I didn't know he was the Prince Regent. He was dressed like a stable boy. Pei Jinping curled up on the ground. His brocade clothes were torn, his skin lacerated, tears and snot streaming down his face. He no longer had any trace of his former dandy prince demeanor.
The Marquis of Anyang was so angry she nearly spat blood.
She struck him again with the whip.
"Coachman, are your eyes just for decoration? That is Xie, the trusted minister the late emperor entrusted his orphan to. Even the current emperor treads carefully around him. His incognito travel is none of your business. And you dared, in his presence, to insult the princess he personally pledged to marry? Are you tired of living? Or do you think the title of Marquis of Anyang has become too hot to hold? Princess."
Pei Jinping, beaten into a daze, jolted at those two words. He raised his head in disbelief.
What princess? Song signing? She's a discarded wife.
The Marquis of Anyang threw down the whip.
Her chest heaved violently. Pointing at her son's nose, she said hoarsely, "A discarded wife?" Now the whole capital knows that Prince Regent Xie publicly proposed on the street to marry Song signing. The betrothal gifts have been prepared since yesterday. They say just the eastern pearls alone filled 3 huge vats. A stream of rare treasures was sent to the Song mansion. You publicly called her a fallen flower and withered willow, unwanted, and then the Prince Regent turns around and asks to marry her as his primary consort. Pei Jinping, you slapped your own face, tore it off with your own hands, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it again and again. Our House of Anyang Marquis
is now a laughingstock to the whole world. Pei Jinping felt as if he had fallen into an icy abyss. The excruciating pain all over his body was nothing compared to the searing regret and resentment tearing at his heart towards Song signing the woman he had cast aside like a worn-out shoe. In the blink of an eye, she was to become Xieyu's legitimate consort, that man, whose power overshadowed the court, and even the emperor feared.
No, it can't be. Father, this must be a lie. The Song family is just trying to spite me.
The Anyang Marquis sneered.
A lie? At today's morning court, the regent himself announced to His Majesty the betrothal. He petitioned for the imperial decree. His Majesty approved on the spot and praised it as a good match beyond social ranks. So tell me, how is it a lie?
Pei Jinping collapsed to the ground, his face ashen. Anyang Marquis,
looking at his unworthy son, was burning with rage, but what surged in his heart was a deeper exhaustion and desolation.
He nudged his son on the ground.
His voice ice cold. "Get out of my sight. Heal your wounds. Bring Lady Lu into the house soon. Stay low and don't cause any trouble. Now, our household must lie low and behave. If you stir up trouble again, before the regent makes a move, I'll break your legs myself."
3 days later, the regent's betrothal gifts arrived exactly as promised. There was no grand announcement, but the betrothal gifts nearly blocked the entire street. The silk brocades glistening in the sun, the dazzling jewelry, the antique bronze and jade artifacts, and chest upon chest of gold and silver that nearly blinded the eyes. In silent grandeur, they proclaimed the solemnity and uniqueness of this marriage. The main gates of the Song mansion were thrown open. Father and mother, though they had doubts about this sudden marriage, and were full of misgivings, especially given the other party's prominent status, but seeing Xie Yu's thorough etiquette, sincere attitude, and the imperial decree, more importantly, they saw in my eyes a glimmer of life absent at the Pei family, and finally nodded in agreement. The betrothal gift list was a thick stack. Mother's hands trembled holding it. This is too much. Xie Yu today wore a dark robe with silver patterns, a brocade robe with a jade crown, hair tied up, without the dust and weariness from that day on the street, making him look even taller and straighter, with a calm and imposing aura.
Miss Song deserves it.
His gaze occasionally fell on me, still deep and calm, betraying little emotion, yet oddly gave me a sense of peace. The wedding day was set for a month later. It was said that the Imperial Observatory calculated it as an auspicious day, coinciding with Liu Nianian's day of being carried into the Anyang Marquis's residence. Fell exactly on the same day. This coincidence was too contrived. Everyone in the capital knew it well, but no one dared to speak out. It was just that the desire to watch the drama grew more intense. On this day, Zouk Street was adorned in red. From the Song Mansion to the Prince Regent's palace, red carpets lined the streets, and silk canopies filled the sky. The Prince Regent personally came to fetch the bride, with a grand procession. The palace guards, in shiny armor, led the way. Music and joy filled the air. The spectacle was so grand, it nearly surpassed the standards of a prince taking a consort. My sedan chair was a specially made 16-bearer gilded sedan. Its top was inlaid with pearls, shimmering warmly under the autumn sun, radiating a gentle luster. And I wore a phoenix crown and a cape, my wedding dress as fiery as flames. The sedan chair set off, with deafening drums, gongs, and firecrackers that almost burst our eardrums. The streets were packed with crowds, eager to witness this wedding of the century, and everyone was buzzing, mostly in awe and envy. Look at that. This is what a real grand wedding looks like. The eldest Miss Song is so lucky. She left the Anyang Marquis mansion, a fiery pit, and walked straight into the Prince Regent's palace.
I heard that at the Anyang Marquis mansion today. TSK, that scene was worlds apart.
The procession marched on, reaching the middle section of Zouk Street, the busiest intersection. Coming from the opposite direction, another shabby wedding procession, heads down, trying to slip through a side alley. There was only a light sedan chair carried by 2 servants, a few servants in plain, household clothes. Followed the leading bridegroom, Pei Jinping, riding a bony horse, wearing a half-worn red robe, his face so dark it could drip water, showing no joy at all. The two processions inevitably collided head-on. The regent's palace escort was well-trained, and did not stop. They just slightly adjusted their formation, still maintaining their majesty and poise, moving forward. But the small procession of the Anyang Marquis' residence was like a tiny boat in the raging waves, overwhelmed by that mighty force, forced to retreat again and again, nearly hitting the vendors on the roadside, utterly embarrassed. Congestion was inevitable. The 16-carrier bridal sedan chair and the small green cloth sedan across were less than 3 yards apart, stopped. The surrounding noise seemed to lower too, countless eyes focused on this eerie and ironic standoff. Pei Jinping gripped the reins tightly, his knuckles white, his gaze like a poisoned hook, staring fixedly at the magnificent, dazzling bridal sedan, especially the sedan's top. The smooth, glistening pearl stung his eyes. Anger, humiliation, jealousy, resentment churned like a storm in his chest. Almost bursting out of him. The curtain of the green cloth sedan chair
was suddenly yanked open by a trembling hand lifting a corner.
Liu Nianian could no longer hold back and secretly lifted a corner of the bridal veil to peek outside. Pei Jinping sensed something unusual with the sedan chair beside him and let out an impatient growl, his voice hoarse, carrying the irritability of a sleepless night and a hangover-like slump. Nianian, he suddenly spurred his horse. The skinny horse reluctantly shuffled forward a couple of steps. He barked at his own cowering servants. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and take another route, you worthless embarrassments." The servants of the Anyang Marquis mansion felt greatly relieved and frantically lifted the sedan chair, wishing they could crawl into a crack in the ground and slunk into a narrow, quiet alley. The alley was dim, a stark contrast to the overwhelming red on Vermilion Bird Avenue. Inside the sedan, Liu Nianian could no longer suppress, and began to sob in despair. Her nails dug deep into her palms, leaving crescent-shaped blood marks. Xie Yu didn't even glance at the fleeing group that was scurrying away in disgrace. He sat upright on his horse, his posture as straight as a mountain, and merely raised his hand slightly. The palace steward immediately understood. The music resumed with even greater fanfare.
The auspicious hour has arrived. Lift the sedan.
Later, I asked Xie Yu whether it was he who pleaded with the Empress Dowager so that I could easily divorce Pei Jinping. He didn't confirm or deny, but simply placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. The household affairs of the prince's mansion, Xie Yu had long entrusted them to an old steward who had served him for years, keeping everything in order. He didn't make me take over the household right away.
No rush. Get familiar first. If you're interested, you can also take a look.
His tone was calm, but it gave me the buffer and space I most needed. He knew what I had been through and trusted that I could handle it. This trust, more than any sweet nothings, made me feel more at ease. Meanwhile, the Anyang Marquis Manor has become a laughingstock in the capital. The Marquis of Anyang, for his lax governance, allowed his subordinates to bully the people and seize land, was impeached by a coalition of officials. His noble title was stripped, and he was reduced to commoner status, ordered to leave the capital immediately. The once Grand Marquis Manor instantly became desolate. Servants scattered. Pei Jinping had been subjected to family discipline. His wounds not yet healed, he was hit by this upheaval. He seemed as if all his strength had been drained. Utterly dejected, Liu Nianian, with her visibly pregnant belly, looked at the bleak mansion and the man before her, who no longer had a trace of his former charm. Only a dispirited and resentful man remained. It felt that her future was pitch black. She was originally a concubine's daughter, had schemed to latch onto Pei Jinping, hoping to rise to the top, even if only as a concubine. It would be as a concubine in a noble marquis manor. Who would have thought that from the start she'd fall from the clouds into the mud? The heir of the manor is gone, became a commoner. The future is bleak, and the woman he thought he had trampled beneath his feet became the regent's consort. Radiant and glorious, Pei Jinping, in his irritation, smashed the teacup at hand. Shards flew everywhere, startling Liu Nianian into a tremble. All you know is to cry. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for your Liu family entangling us back then, how could it have come to this? His pent-up venom, with no outlet, he poured all onto Liu Nianian. Liu Nianian had a sharp pain in her belly. She was both startled and terrified, but didn't dare to talk back. She just covered her face and sobbed. Those sweet words from the past, vows and promises, now seemed thinner than paper, more fragile than frost. On the day they left the capital, the weather was gloomy. A shabby light rail carriage carried the Pei family's few remaining belongings and their disheartened family. Silently, it drove out through the side gate. Compared to the bustling days when guests filled the entrance, it felt like a lifetime ago. No one came to see them off. Only a few passers-by pointed and whispered, their eyes full of contempt and mockery. As the carriage passed through the city gate, it crossed paths with a group of riders in bright clothes on fine horses, escorting several carts of exquisite silk and medicinal herbs. They brushed past each other. That was the annual tribute from the imperial merchants of Jiangnan to the regent's mansion. Through the gap in the carriage curtain, Pei Jinping stared at the dust kicked up by the departing team. His nails dug deep into the carriage board, his eyes filled with bitter resentment and unwillingness. In the end, it all turned into a dead, lifeless grey. Liu Nianian sat beside him, touching her belly, feeling the slight movement inside. But there was no joy in her heart, only endless dread and coldness. This road led to their remote ancestral home where they were exiled. The road ahead was bleak, with none of the capital's prosperity or opportunities left. Only the hardship of making ends meet and a long life ahead filled with mutual resentment.